Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've tuned in to look at the global retardation that's going on, because let's be honest, at the moment, global retardation is just at all times high. So we're actually going to look today at Australia, then globally, and then come back to South Africa. So let's start off with the first news story, and that is around the Israeli president's visit to Australia. Now, he went to Melbourne, and then he went to Sydney, and he went there following the massacres that occurred at Bondi Beach. Now, obviously, he was going to go there and pay tributes to all those killed at the Hanukkah terrorist attack. But in typical fashion, well, the nut jobs that are now in Australia, with many of these like far left activists, had a lot to say. They wanted to protest President Herzog's visit. And whilst they tried to, the local police had to take out restraining orders to stop them obstructing the president's visit. So let's actually start off and talk about what actually happened. Well, the president gave a speech in which he said he's not really sure why many of these anti-Israeli protesters are flooding the streets of Melbourne when there were over 50,000 people that had been killed in Iran and nobody's in front of that embassy. In fact, this is what he had to say.
And I say to all those protesters outside, go protest in front of the Iranian embassy or whichever embassy they have. For heaven's sake, they killed and butchered around 50,000, tens of thousands of their own people, operating a whole machine of an empire of evil against us, we, the state of Israel, which is protecting the free world, literally protecting the free world and its values by combating this empire of evil.
Now, obviously, after addressing the audience in Melbourne, President Herzog went off to Sydney to pay respects to the victims at Bondi Beach, and he was seen laying wreaths there for those massacred. Now, obviously, all the nut jobs in Sydney, of which there are a few, they started to try to obstruct the president, and they wanted to protest him with their anti-Israeli slogans. And this resulted in mass unrest on the street, which you can see right here. Now, not to be outdone, there were many individuals who thought, they've got a great idea on how they will obstruct the president's visit. They would go and do forms of Islamic prayer in the middle of the streets. And whilst doing that prayer, you couldn't disrupt their freedom of religion, because if you did that, that would be racist and Islamophobic. And this was the idea. So what they were basically doing is weaponizing their religion in order to do forms of protesting. Well, the police, because they had a dispersal order, because they had already got injunctions to stop people doing this, they removed the protesters. And in typical fashion, the protesters all claimed it was Islamophobic. Now, to show you just how far left activists have taken their whole activism, Grace Tame, who won the Australian of the Year for fighting child sexual abuse campaigns, is now deciding that she's going to be pro-Gazan, and she was at the protest demanding to globalize the Intifada and branded Israel a fascist rogue state. And this is leading many to ask the question on how a very young woman has been radicalized into extremism ideology. You can actually watch her address an audience right here. But it's not hard to understand how the individual has been radicalized. They've been radicalized by the media. They've been radicalized by politicians who have been telling them for how long about the evils of Israel. And because of mass migration and the impact that it is having on the ideology of the West, that's really what's going on here. Now, you can actually see that in New York. Now, remember that in New York on the 9th of November, 2001, an attack occurred which took down the two towers, and that was done by radical Islam. Well, as of today, 2026, the new mayor of New York directly references the Prophet Muhammad and how his political ideology in New York is being shaped by his Islamic and Quranic belief. In fact, you can see that right here.
And I consider my own faith, Islam, a religion built upon a narrative of migration. The story of the Hijrah reminds us that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a stranger too, who fled Mecca and was welcomed in Medina. Surah An-Nahl 1642 tells us, "As for those who immigrated in the cause of Allah after being persecuted, we will surely bless them with a good home in this world." Or as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, Islam began as something strange and will go back to being strange. So glad tidings to the strangers. If faith offers us the moral compass to stand alongside the stranger, government can provide the resources. Let us create a new expectation of City Hall, where power is wielded to love, to embrace, and to protect. We will stand with the stranger today.
Now, the problem is that because of mass migration, it is changing Western states. But the migrants themselves know this, which is leading many of them to become very emboldened, claiming that places like America will become Islamic. Have a watch.
It's coming to America.
Islam's coming to America?
Yes, it's coming.
Wait, is this going to be
One day, America will become a Muslim state, a Muslim country.
Really?
Tell Trump.
That's never going to happen.
Yes, it will
That is
happen.
never going to happen.
God is powerful.
It's never going to happen. Is that what you want?
God is powerful.
Is that what everybody here wants? You want to see a
That's
Muslim
one
country?
thing. Our goal is to make America Islam.
Really?
Islamic state.
Never going to happen.
Yes. God is powerful.
It's never going to happen.
You control the heart of Americans. God guides whom He wills.
Over my dead body will this become an Islamic
يريدون ليطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم
like this.
والله متم نوره ولو كره الكافرون.
Now, you may say that would never happen, but we are seeing radicalism in America growing. Nobody seems to be wanting to talk about it, but it's definitely happening. In fact, you can see this clip from a school in the US. Yes, this is the US. Have a watch.
حملت دمي على كفي ما نكست أعلامي حملت دمي على كفي وما نكست.
Now, watching what you've just watched, you'd be mistaken for thinking that had come out of Gaza. It's not. It's America. And that type of thing is becoming more and more prominent across Western nations. Let's look at Spain and Europe. Because of undocumented Muslim asylum seekers, it is changing the demography of those states. Now, you may ask the question, how bad is the asylum with all the individuals rushing those states? Well, I don't know. Have a watch. So what happens when the individuals actually get there? Well, let's use Sweden as an example, because many of the radical Islamists in Sweden are now demanding Sharia law take over. Sweden, a historically Christian country in Western Europe, now has demands for the imposition of Sharia law. These individuals are not coming to assimilate. They are coming to take over, and they are telling you that. which is why you can even see in this clip, which I'm about to show you, an Egyptian Coptic Christian asks an Islamic preacher in Sweden why he wants to adopt Islam in Sweden. As she says, she's had to pay the jizya to keep her Christian faith before in Egypt. That Egypt she was kicked out of. Now she's considered an infidel in that land. She's gone to Sweden, and now she's having the same rubbish all over again through Islamic extremism that's taken over Sweden. Have a watch.
جدودي كانوا اغنياء دفعوا الجزيه عشان يفضلوا على دينهم، الفقراء اللي بقوا مسلمين، طب انت سايب بلدك ليه وعايش في الكفار؟ دي بلد كفار عايش فيها ليه؟ بتاكل وتشرب منها ليه؟ بتاخد فلوس منها ليه؟ انا بقول لك كمان حره يا اخي.
جلسة هو وين عم بيقول بلد كفار؟ ليش ما تقول له يلا؟ ايش تسوي بلد كفار؟ دينتي الارهابيه.
Now, you may be sitting here in South Africa and thinking to yourself, well, at least it doesn't impact us, except I've been warning for some time around the gift of the givers. And in the latest news, the gift of the givers have shared a TikTok video on the 4th of February, which targets Jews and Christians and prompts criticisms of Jewish and Christian communities. So, yes, gift of the givers is now firmly imbibing their Islam. Now, the video, originally created by someone else, claims that Christians cannot support Israel and labels Christian Zionism as an abomination. Now, this comes after the Nelson Mandela Foundation hit out a challenge to tackle Christian Zionism in the country and to somehow label Israel as being a legitimate place. Now, this TikTok video apparently gave many false statements about Jewish beliefs regarding Jesus and said that these beliefs were framed as being representative of all Jews. And don't forget there are these things called Messianic Jews that actually believe in Jesus anyway. That's an inconvenient truth. Now, Gift of the Giver actually captioned this post, suggesting that their mission was that of impartial humanitarian aid. But when you start sharing videos like this, that is you taking a stance. That's not you being impartial. Now, many critics argue that the video is offensive, intolerant, and constitutes religious bigotry and shows that there's this Islamic bend going on with the Gift of the Givers. And to be honest, if you pay attention, you'll already know that that's the case. But a US think tank expert suggests that the Gift of the Givers leadership has repeatedly engaged in anti-Semitic messaging, and that needs scrutiny, specifically given his position in the South African state. Remember that this was the individual who was pushed forward to lead the national dialogue. Talking of which, I have no idea what's happening with that, and we haven't heard a thing. Now, the Gift of the Giver has been known before as asking individuals to refrain from hate speech, but it's amazing that any form of anti-Semitic comments that remain on this platform will remain there. So they do endorse anti-Semitism, but they can't have other forms of hate speech. So effectively, you can't criticize Islam, but you can criticize everybody else. And this, unfortunately, appears to be a hallmark of these type of beliefs. Now, as we criticize the Jewish state of Israel so much, we must turn our attention then to Christians, because obviously the Gift of the Giver tells us that you can't be Christian and support Israel. Well, the Israeli Ministry of Affairs has noted some rather interesting things that you, dear viewers, should probably note. The first is that Syria's Christians went from 1.5 million in 2010 to 350,000 in 2025. Islamic State. Iraq's Christians went from 1.5 million in 2010 to 200,000 today. Islamic State. Lebanon's Christians went from 36% to 28% of the population. Islamic State. The areas occupied underneath the Palestinian Authority, the Christian communities shrunk by 10%. Islamic State. Yeah, you see, what you tend to notice is that Islamic states are not notoriously very good at protecting Christians. Now, are they? But you know who is? The state of Israel, which I'm assured by places such as Tucker Carlson is, hates Christians. They hate them, they spit on them, they do all sorts of stuff. Well, they've just adopted and created a new post called a Christian ambassador. And the entire goal of the Christian ambassador is to protect Christians in Muslim countries. In fact, have a watch.
My name is George Deek. I am the Israeli ambassador to Azerbaijan until a few months ago, the first ever Christian ambassador of the State of Israel. I come from this city, from Jaffa, where my family has lived for centuries. I'm part of the Christian Arab community of this city, and I want to welcome you to my town.
Welcome to Jaffa.
We're literally walking inside Christian history as we speak.
A thriving location here in Israel that has a vibrant Christian community.
You have the Christian Greek Orthodox Church. Over there with the blue dome, you can see the Coptic Church. And right there at the end, you can see the Maronite Church.
For the 3,000 to 4,000 people that live here, there's about 13 different churches.
Israel is the only place where the Christian community is growing in numbers. You know, in Israel we had 100 to 150 churches about 70, 80 years ago. Today we have over 300 congregations.
That is the reality for Christians here in the State of Israel, where religious freedom for all is safeguarded, allowing diverse communities to prosper.
The Christian community in Israel is the most educated and successful Christian community in the Middle East. It is one that can live its faith without fear. It is one that can grow and prosper and join the Israeli high-tech sector and the innovation. It is one that can go and do genome research and leave it in the Weizmann Institute.
For years, Israel's most vocal critics have tried to sow division here and also abroad.
Our life here is too precious to be gambled upon by those who are attacking the only firewall that stands between the safety for Christians in the land and the catastrophes that befell the Christian communities in Iraq, in Mosul, or in Nineveh.
George Deek, whose family has lived here for generations, and he himself, who has lived here as a Christian his entire life, has a clear message to them.
I invite whoever cares about Christians here. If you truly care about me, my family, my children, our life here, come, partner with us. This is our life here. It is a place where we don't only survive, we thrive.
So yes, we really are living in odd times, and the more I cover the news, the more I just feel like the whole world has just gone like completely batshit bonkers. But that's just my opinion. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until next time, bye.